You know that feeling when doing the right thing cost you everything. Jack Thornton learned that lesson on a Tuesday afternoon in March, standing in his boss's office, hearing words that would turn his entire world upside down. He'd just been fired not for stealing, not for incompetence, but for fixing an elderly woman's brake line, without charging her a dime. What Jack didn't know, what nobody knew, was that this woman wasn't just any customer. And 3 days later, when she walked back through that garage door, she'd bring something with her that would change not just Jack's life, but everyone who'd ever doubted that goodness still matters in this world. This is that story, and I promise you, it's nothing like you're expecting. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these, we tell them every week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Asterisk. Jack had been turning wrenches at Morrison's Auto Repair for 11 years. Not the kind of 11 years that feels like a prison sentence. The kind where you actually care, where you remember Mrs. Patterson's Civic needs that specific oil filter, and Mr. Chen's truck makes that clicking sound. That isn't really a problem, but worries him anyway, so you check it every time without charging. Morrison sat on the corner of 5th and Brennan, wedged between a laundromat and a Chinese restaurant that always smelled like garlic, and possibility the neighborhood had seen better days. Most places had, but Jack liked it here. Like the rhythm of it, the realness. His co-workers were good people. There was Tommy, fresh out of technical school, still learning which end of a torque wrench to trust, and Maria, the shop manager, who could diagnose an engine problem by sound alone and had a laugh that could shake the hydraulic lifts. Then there was Dale Morrison. The owner, Dale, had inherited the shop from his father 15 years back, and somewhere between then and now, he'd forgotten what his old man had built it on. His dad used to say, "We fix cars, but we serve people." Dale just saw invoices and profit margins. Everything had become about the bottom line. Every repair order needed to maximize revenue. Every customer was a number in a database. Jack had watched the shift happen slowly, like rust creeping across chrome. That Tuesday started normal enough March. Wind rattling the bay doors, the smell of motor oil and coffee. Tommy was struggling with a transmission rebuild. Maria was arguing with a part supplier on the phone. Her Spanish getting faster the more frustrated she became. Then she came in. The woman moved carefully. Each step deliberate. She must have been in her 70s. Maybe older. Her coat had been nice once. You could tell, but it was worn at the edges now. The way things get when you can't afford to replace them, but refuse to let go of dignity. She drove a 1998 Honda Accord tan. The clear coat was peeling, and there was a dent in the rear quarter panel that looked like it had its own history. "Excuse me," she said. Her voice quiet but steady. "My brake pedal's been going soft. I'm afraid to drive it much further." Jack walked out to take a look, popped the hood, checked the brake fluid reservoir. The nearly empty got underneath on the creeper. And there it was, a brake line weeping fluid where it ran along the frame rail. Corrosion had finally eaten through. Not a complicated fix, but not a cheap one either. Not when you factor in parts and labor. He rolled back out from under the car and found her standing there, clutching her purse with both hands. "How bad is it?" she asked. Jack wiped his hands on a rag. "Your brake line's leaking. It's not safe to drive. I can fix it today, though. Have you back on the road by this afternoon?" Relief washed over her face. Then worry replaced it just as quickly. "How much would something like that cost?" Jack quoted her the honest price. $340 lot parts and labor. He'd already shaved his commission off mentally, because that's just who he was. Her face fell. She opened her purse, counted out bills with shaking hands. Ones and fives, mostly some tens. I have 87 but," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just paid for my prescriptions yesterday, and my Social Security doesn't come until next week. Maybe I could pay you the rest over time. I could give you $20 a week until it's paid off." She looked up at him, and Jack saw something in her eyes that hit him square in the chest. Not just worry, not just embarrassment, but that specific kind of exhaustion that comes from a lifetime of being decent and still barely getting by. Behind her, through the office window, Jack could see Dale watching, waiting. Jack made a decision. Tell you what he said. "I've got some brake line left over from another job, and it's a slow day. How about I get you fixed up, and you pay me that $87? We'll call it even. I can't let you do that," she protested, already decided. Jack said and smiled. "Go grab a coffee next door. I'll have this done in an hour." Her eyes filled up. She touched his arm briefly, said thank you in a way that made those two words feel holy, and walked toward the Chinese restaurant. Jack got to work. He didn't see Dale come out of the office. Didn't notice him standing there until he spoke. "What the hell do you think you're doing fixing her brakes?" Jack said, not looking up from the brake line he was threading. For $87, that's what she could afford. Dale's face went red. "That's a $340 job. You just cost me $250 in profit." Jack stood up, meeting his boss's eyes. "She's on a fixed income, Dale. Her brakes were shot. What was she supposed to do? Not my problem and not yours either. Your job is to fix cars and charge what we charge." "That's it, your dad wouldn't have." "My dad ran this place into the ground with that bleeding heart nonsense." Dale snapped, "I'm trying to run a business. You want to play charity worker? Do it on your own time with your own money." Tommy and Maria had stopped working. The shop had gone quiet. "So what are you saying?" Jack asked. "I'm saying you're fired effective immediately. Finish that brake line because I'm not leaving a car half-fixed. Then clean out your locker and get out." The words hung in the air like exhaust fumes. Maria stepped forward. "Dale, come on, Jack's been here 11 years. And in 11 years, he should have learned how business works." This isn't a discussion. Jack felt something crack inside his chest. Not anger exactly, more like disappointment in the whole damn world. "Fine," he said quietly. He finished the brake line in silence. Did it right the way he always did. Bled the brakes, tested the pedal. Made sure everything was safe. When the old woman came back, he handed her the keys. "You're all set." He told her brakes are good. "You drive careful now." She pressed the $87 into his hand. Jack tried to refuse it, but she insisted. "You take this," she said firmly. "A person's work has value. Don't you ever forget that." He watched her drive away in her tan Honda. Then he cleaned out his locker. 11 years fit into a cardboard box. Some photos, a coffee mug. A few tools that were his own. Maria hugged him at the door. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "Doesn't feel like it," Jack said. He carried his box to his truck and drove home to tell his wife he'd just lost his job. The next 3 days were rough. Jack's wife, Sarah, took it better than he expected. They'd been married 17 years. She knew who she'd married. "We'll figure it out," she said. Which is what she always said, and somehow it always helped. He started making calls, updated his resume. Checked job boards. The economy wasn't great. Most shops weren't hiring, the ones that were offered less money than he'd been making. He'd come home each afternoon and Sarah would ask how it went. And he'd shake his head and she'd squeeze his shoulder. And they'd figure out what to make for dinner with what they had. By Friday, Jack was starting to feel the weight of it. Not just the financial pressure, though that was real, but something heavier. That creeping question, had he been stupid? Should he have just looked the other way? Done his job, kept his head down. He kept seeing that old woman's face. The relief when he'd said he'd fix her brakes. The gratitude that had made her cry. No, he'd done the right thing. Even if it cost him everything, he'd done the right thing. Friday afternoon, Jack was sitting on his front porch with a beer. He wasn't really drinking when Sarah came outside. "There's someone here to see you," she said, and something in her voice made him look up. A tan Honda Accord was parked at the curb. The old woman got out of the car, but she wasn't alone. A man in his 40s stepped out of the passenger side. Expensive suit, the kind that fits so well. You know it cost more than most people's monthly rent. Behind them, a silver Mercedes pulled up. Jack stood confused. The woman walked up his driveway. And she was smiling, really smiling. "Mr. Thornton," she said, "I've been trying to find you. The shop wouldn't give me your information, but my son is persistent." The man in the suit extended his hand. "Robert Shun, I believe. You know, my mother, Margaret." Jack shook his hand, utterly bewildered. I fixed her brakes." "Yeah, she told me what you did." Robert said what happened after Margaret touched Jack's arm. "I couldn't stop thinking about you, about losing your job, because you helped me, so I told my son." Robert smiled. "Mr. Thornton, I own Shin Automotive Group. We have 17 dealerships across 3 states. When my mother told me what you did, what it cost you, I did some checking. Called some people. Your reputation in this community is exceptional. People trust you, that matters." Jack's heart was pounding. "I appreciate that, but I'd like to offer you a position." Robert interrupted. "Regional service manager. You'd oversee operations at our 5 locations in this state. Make sure our service departments are running right. Make sure our customers are treated the way you treated my mother. The salary is $95,000 a year, plus benefits and a company car. Jack couldn't breathe, that's not all. Margaret said softly, my son and I talked. We'd also like to establish something in your name, the Jack Thornton Community Care Fund, for people who need car repairs but can't afford them. We'll fund it, you'll help run it, because what you did for me, that kind of kindness shouldn't cost someone their livelihood. It should be celebrated, protected. Sarah had come outside, she was crying. Jack might have been too. I don't know what to say. Jack managed to say yes, Robert said. Jack looked at Margaret. This woman he'd helped without expecting anything in return. This woman who could have just driven away grateful. And that would have been enough.
Why, he asked.
Why go through all this trouble? Margaret's eyes glistened, because 30 years ago, I was a single mother with 3 kids and a broken-down car. A mechanic in Portland helped me when I couldn't pay. Wouldn't take my money, told me to pay it forward someday. He saved my life that day. Let me get to work, keep my job. Feed my children, I never forgot him. Never forgot that feeling of being seen. Being helped, I've looked for ways to pay it forward ever since. She squeezed his hand. You didn't just fix my brakes, Jack. You reminded me why I made myself a promise, to help others when I could. My son has done well, we've been blessed. And now we can bless you back. That's how this works, that's how it's supposed to work.